My twin sister Hazel and I were home alone that night. Our parents were at a reunion party at their friend's house, and they were staying over. At around midnight, we heard some noise coming from downstairs. As we were fast asleep in our room, that noise startled us. Hazel was sleeping on her bed next to mine, and after hearing that sound, she turned to me and said in her sleepy voice, "What's that sound?" "Must be a cat or a raccoon getting on the trash can," I replied. She agreed, and we didn't think much of it, but suddenly, just a moment later, the door to our room swung open. We instantly got up and looked towards the door. There, in the dark, we saw two figures running towards us fast. But before we move on, like this video, hit that subscribe button, and activate the notification bell. This will let you live 20 amazing years longer. Trust me, it works. Before we could scream or reach for our phones, each of the masked people shut our mouth using a cloth that had a weird smell. I looked at Hazel from the corner of my eye and saw that she was struggling to get out of the person's grip like I was doing, but we couldn't as they were big and much stronger than us. A few minutes later, my eyes started to feel heavy and I passed out. When I was conscious again, I was not in my room. I, along with Hazel and the two intruders, were in our parents' room. They had tied our hands and legs, tied us to a chair, and taped our mouths shut. Meanwhile, they were trying to pick the lock of the safe in the room. But they saw that we were conscious, so one of them came to us and said, "I'm going to open one of your tapes, and you're going to answer what we ask. If you try to scream, it wouldn't be good." Then he pulled out a gun and showed it to us and put it back away. After that, he reached for the tape on my mouth and took it off. As he had said, I didn't scream or say anything. "Do you know the passcode of this safe?" he asked. "No, we don't," I replied. We honestly had no idea as we never paid attention to the safe. "When's your birthday?" he asked again. "September 20th?" I replied, and the other person tried to put it in as a code, but the safe didn't open. The man that was asking questions got angry and taped my mouth shut again, but then Hazel started making a sound from underneath the tape. I knew that she used to get suffocated quickly, but the intruders didn't. So I started making noise as well to get their attention. "Shut them up, I can't focus," the one working on the safe said. So the other one came to us again and this time opened the tape from Hazel's mouth. "What?" he said. "I can't breathe like this," she replied. He went to the other guy and whispered something into his ear. Next thing you know, they were carrying us down to our basement. They dropped us there, our hands and feet were still tied, but they took the tape off of our mouth. "Okay, you go to work on the safe and I'll guard them," one said. "I need you up there. We need to break the safe," the other replied. Then the guy with the gun looked at us and said, "Don't try to scream or try to be smart. I'll blow your heads off." And they went upstairs again to my parents' room, locking the basement door. In the dark, Hazel and I were trying very hard to undo the rope that they had tied to our hands. We were constantly trying and failing. It was not an easy job, obviously. "It's not working." Hazel was crying in disappointment. She was afraid, and so was I. "Just keep trying," I replied, and kept trying myself. A few moments later, Hazel gasped. Yes! She was doing it, finally freeing herself out of the rope. After untying the ropes on her own hands and legs, she came to me and untied mine. We hugged each other and then started talking about what we should do next in a very low voice. "What do we do now?" Hazel asked, and honestly, I didn't have a single clue about that. But suddenly I remembered something. A few days before, my dad's poor handyman skill had caused a crack in the basement's window, and if we strike it one more time, the glass would come off, giving us a way out. But there was a catch. The breaking of the glass would make a sound, and the window was so small, only one of us could get out at a time. That meant we would have only enough time for one of us to get out before the intruders came down after the sound. It was me or my sister. No matter the catch, I decided to tell the idea to my sister. "One of us has to stay here," I said after telling her the full plan. "You should go and get help," I said again as I wanted her to be safe. But she didn't agree. "Harley, everyone knows that you're the marathon champion and fastest runner in our school. You should go and get help. They might catch me, but they won't be able to catch you," she said. So we decided that I was the one to go out and my sister was going to stay there and distract them if they came down. Then we tried to find a heavy object in the dark with very little light. But since it was the basement, it wasn't hard. Hazel instantly found a hammer. We wasted no time and went towards the window. I looked at my sister and said, "I'll come back soon." After that, I climbed a box to reach the window, and as soon as I did, I hit the glass with a hammer. As we had predicted, it made a loud sound, so I immediately cleared the glass and climbed out. Then I started running without looking back even once. I instantly ran to my neighbors across the street and started knocking on the door. "Mr. Harris, please open the door," I cried as I knocked, but they didn't answer, so I didn't waste any more time there. Quickly, I ran to another neighbor's house and started knocking, but there too I got no response. But I had to keep trying, so I ran to another neighbor's, Stafford's house. I knocked on their door and screamed, "Mr. and Mrs. Stafford, please, open the door." The light of the porch turned on and the door opened. Mr. Stafford saw me and asked, "Harley, what are you doing here at this time?" I told him that our house had been broken into and everything that had happened. He let me in and immediately called the police. He gave them our address and handed me the phone to call my parents. So I did. I called my parents and told them everything. They told me that they would be home instantly. Soon we heard police car sirens, so we went out and walked towards my house. There were 2 police cars parked in front of our house. They had just reached and were getting out of the car. As we were walking in, we saw that our front door was wide open. We immediately went in to see that the intruders were already gone and that they had opened my parents' safe as well. But that was not the important thing. So the first thing I did was run to the basement with the police. There, I saw my sister. She had been tied again and her mouth was shut with tape. She was crying. I hurriedly removed the tape from her mouth and untied the ropes. As soon as I did that, she hugged me and cried even more. "What happened?" I asked. She told us that as soon as I got out, they came down. As they saw the window broken and that I wasn't there, the gunman took out his gun and put it to her head. "Didn't I tell you not to act smart?" he said. But the other one interrupted and said that they had to leave. So he slapped her hard. He was angry, because of which she fell on the floor and then tied her and left. But what she told me next made me so proud of her. She told us that when he had a gun to her head, she went for his jacket and took out his purse. And as she fell, she threw it under a shelf. Since the guy was so angry, he didn't even notice. So I went to the shelf, crouched down, and pulled a purse from under there. I gave it to the police officer without opening it. She opened it and found a driver's license, but the photo was cut out from it. "Henry Baker," she read out. "Does your family have anything to do with Henry Baker?" she asked. "No, not that we know of," I replied. Then she called her office and asked to look him up in the system. After that, we heard someone calling our name from upstairs. "Hazel? Harley?" It was our parents. So we went upstairs, and as we reached, they came running towards us and hugged us. Then the police officer asked our parents to check the safe and see what items were missing. My mom quickly ran in and went through everything in the safe. After what she said next, we were all left confused. "Nothing is missing from here. All the cash and pieces of jewelry are here," she said. "So why did they go through all the trouble of breaking into your house and then your safe?" the officer asked. After she said that, my father rushed towards the safe to check for something. "They took my drive," he said with a worried look on his face. He told the officer that he had a drive in the safe that had decades of our family business records, and it was very important as it could disclose all of our clients' information. So we had only one thing to do: go to the address of Henry Baker as quickly as possible. For that, the police officer asked my dad to come along. "One of you sisters should come with us to identify him," she said. It was again me or my sister. I looked at Hazel and saw that she was pretty shaken up, so I told the officer that I would go along. I got into my dad's car and we followed behind the police car. After driving for about half an hour, we made a stop in front of an old apartment building. We got out of the car and started making our way into the building behind the police officers. The elevator of the building was not working, so we had to take the stairs. The address said he lived on the 3rd floor. When we reached in front of his door, the police officers told us to stay behind. They knocked on the door, and from inside, a man came shouting, "Who is it this late?" he said, and opened the door. I instantly recognized his voice. It was that guy with the gun. "It's him!" I screamed, and the officers quickly grabbed him and cuffed him before he could run or do anything, and took him inside. We also went in to find that he wasn't the only one in the apartment. There were 2 other guys who also surrendered to the police. My dad said that he recognized one of the guys. He told the police that the 3rd guy, who was not one of the intruders, was his business rival. That meant he was the mastermind and that he had hired the gunman and the locksmith to break into our house and steal the drive, to steal our business secrets and clients. The police arrested them and were about to take them to jail, but I had unfinished business with the gunman, so I went up to him and I punched him on the nose. "That's for hurting my sister," I said. And then my dad and I headed home. Thanks for watching. Have you ever had to choose between you and your sibling? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and check out other videos on the channel.